We were here yesterday talking, I should say, welcome back to Hometown Cable and what's going on here. Yesterday we were here talking to Pat and David Martin about their trip to China, and we were introduced to our son Peter, who's standing here with us, and we found out that he's into graphic arts, and it looked interesting enough to us yesterday that we figured we'll come back today and do a short segment on graphic arts. And hi, Peter.
Hello.
All right. Now, your dad worked in Chazy, but I understand you went to school in Beekmantown.
Yes, I went to high school in Beekmantown.
Graduated from Beekmantown?
Yes, and then I went to college.
I can ask young people, when did you graduate? What year?
In 1989.
89, and went where then?
Oh, I graduated from high school in 85.
85. Oh, all right. 85. Then you went where?
To Cornell University.
And majored?
In interior architecture and design theory.
Have you always been interested in this?
Pretty much through all of high school, basically.
Didn't want to be a teacher, get all those summers off? You didn't want to do that?
Well, I think eventually I want to be a teacher in the college level of design.
You got good role models on that with
yeah.
Mom and Dad, yes.
Yeah.
And I think they mentioned in our discussion that you had taken a trip out to see them out in China when you were there, right?
Yes, last December in January.
How long were you there?
A little about 5 weeks. Yeah.
5 weeks? That was a nice trip.
Yeah.
You enjoyed that?
Yes, very much, yeah.
Yeah, I heard you had more trouble getting in than they did.
Yeah.
Right?
There was some complications getting the visa.
Okay. Based on your course and graduated in 89, you could go in different directions, is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mainly, my main major was interior architecture. I was mainly educated and studied as interior designer. But my junior year, I took a graphic design course, mainly typography.
Mm-hmm.
And that just sort of clicked a trigger in me.
All right.
That interested me in graphic design.
I have a question. I'm not so sure I know what you mean by interior designing. Maybe there's somebody out there that does it. So what do you mean by interior design?
Well, basically, a lot of times architects design what the building looks on the outside. But you have to fill the building with rooms and halls and stairs and elevators and everything from there. And then you have to put surfaces on everything. What kind of carpet goes on? What kind of furniture is in there?
Mm-hmm.
And what we studied is how to make those rooms work the best way for people who use them.
Residential as well as business?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But have you been doing that for the last 3 years?
No.
What have you been doing for the last 3 years?
Well, the first year after graduating, I built wooden boats, antique reproductions.
Interior boats, obviously, because that was your specialty, no?
No. Just they're Garwood boats, and they were made all through the teens and the 20s and 30s of the century. And then these two brothers from Saratoga, New York, started doing reproductions and renovations of originals. And I wanted to get into a place, either furniture or boat building or whatever, where I could just expose myself to materials, wood and metal and glass, and just what you can do and what you can't do with everything with wood. So I spent basically 10 months building those boats and learning what I wanted to learn there.
In Saratoga?
No, actually in Albany, New York, or Watervliet.
All right. And that Watervliet, that's where the family started in that area, I think. Don't you have a sister living down in there?
Yes.
Oh, so you had a place to stay in Albany?
Yeah.
Oh, you got it made. I'll tell you, these young people are thinking all the time.
Yeah.
You missed your sister. That's really what happened.
Yeah.
You missed your sister.
Right.
All right. Your dad mentioned rowing. Now, what did you have to do with rowing?
Well, I rowed at Cornell when I was a freshman. I just had a slight interest and sort of went in it ignorant of everything. But I just became successful at it, and it was a true love of mine. And so I spent all 4 years rowing at Cornell. And then when I was working at Garwood, I was a volunteer assistant coach for the State University at Albany. And then when I finished at Garwood, the head coach at Albany, Mike Davenport, invited me to go with him to his new job at Washington College, where I went with him to coach the women's freshman and varsity team.
Is that in Washington, D.C.?
No, it's in Chestertown, Maryland, on the Eastern Shore.
Oh, okay. Now, when you say rowing, again, we think of a rowboat here, but you're not thinking of a rowboat. You're thinking as we see in the Olympics?
Yes.
Exactly. What do you call it? You call it sculls?
Well, sculling is where one rower has 2 oars in their hand.
Okay.
And that's with a double, with 2 people, or a single, with 1 person rowing.
Well, I learned something there. But rowing, you only have 1
But
oar?
then when you're rowing, you actually have just 1 oar, and that's called sweep rowing. And there are usually 8 people or 4 people on a boat. in that case, and
Right.
there are 4 on the port side, 4 on the starboard.
Right. You're 100, 200 years too late. They could have used you back when they had those big sailboats and the wind wasn't
Yeah.
blowing enough there.
Yeah.
They had those. They also had just one oar, right? That they would
Yeah.
all pull in unison. And it's very important, I assume, that you do it in some kind of an order so that you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
go against each other.
Yeah, timing is
Okay.
crucial. Yeah.
All right. So then, what are you doing home now for Christmas? Are you here?
Well, no, after I finished rowing, I spent the summer with my girlfriend going out west. We lived in Aspen, Colorado for the summer and
Mm-hmm.
worked and played around out there. And then at the end of the summer, I illustrated a book on rowing. It's on the rigging of rowing, and Mike Davenport wrote it, and he asked me to illustrate it. So I spent most of the fall doing that, and also doing my portfolio for.
Now, if you were not at home, could you make enough by the illustration of that one book to make a living for yourself? Is it that kind of money?
Well, it depends what book you get. I
Uh-huh.
think this will just be a nice bonus along the way.
Mhm.
I'll be paid every quarter of the year from whatever revenue. I get 10% of all the revenue that comes off the book.
You work 2 hours a day on this or more?
No, I worked probably. When I was illustrating the book, I was doing about 8 to 10 hours a day.
When you're talking about illustrating, it's not photographs anyway. It's all drawing. As we talk
Yeah.
about illustrating, that means drawing
Yeah.
something. All right. Do you have that book here where we can look at, or let's just start here, for instance.
Okay.
In front of us here, this is your drawing board. That you don't need a lot of room. You have an area, let's say 6 by 6. You could sit down and do your work.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about what I'm looking at. What is this board, and what is this?
Yeah, well, this is a drawing board, and it's surfaced with it's called a self-healing surface, and it allows you to cut things like with an X-Acto blade. You can cut paper, and then the incision in the surface heals itself.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you can keep cutting. And
Okay.
then for this is called a sliding rule or a parallel rule,
Mm-hmm.
and this it always stays parallel, so you can draw horizontal lines always parallel.
And are there little squares anywhere so you can make sure when you paste your paper down?
That's where you use triangles.
Okay, against this, right?
Yeah. So then
Okay, then you know that it's square. All
Yeah.
right,
And then that,
or at an angle, whatever.
right. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so you would sit down here with a blank sheet of paper
Mhm.
and then start. Well, before you do that, you got to have
Yeah.
thinking, right? You got to do some ideas.
Yeah. Usually, what I do is I carry a blank journal around with me
Uh-huh.
a lot, and when I have a project, I just sort of a lot of times I think about it here and there when I'm riding on a bus or something,
Mhm.
and having this journal just allows me to brainstorm on different.
So you kind of write it down. Okay.
Yeah, so I
Let's just give them an idea here of what.
so you do different sketches.
So when you see something on a wall or on a street or on a
Mhm.
car, it could give you an idea for something a little bit different, but
Yeah.
with this as a focus.
Mhm.
Did that happen?
Yeah, that
Okay.
happens a lot, and so
So you kind of then you get back and you kind of put it on your board.
Yeah.
Or you've done a lot of this when you're traveling and doing things.
yeah, and so then you just also just do different exercises or just sketches,
Okay.
playful things. But what you do is develop the idea, and then you start defining the idea more, developing it, and that's where you come up with harder lines and
Right.
more precise.
Do you have a particular job in mind when you are before you get to that point where you start to put it on paper? You know whether it's going to be a poster or a T-shirt.
Yeah,
or so,
yeah,
you have that in mind.
Yeah, I
All
always
right.
have that.
Okay. Now, what kind of work could you be doing? For instance, we know you could do a T-shirt. I just mentioned that. I saw a couple in there. You could do a poster like on the wall here, for instance. I see there's one there,
Yeah.
and there's one here, and there's one here,
Yeah.
which would represent this is. Who would buy that poster from you? Say, is that a poster
Well-
to be sold?
Yeah, it can be eventually. I'm nowhere to have developed a plan to market it at all. It's just an idea I executed, and that could be places like that one's very environmental.
Okay.
It's environmentally strong. message, and that could be sold to places like the Nature Company or the Environmental Defense Fund.
Right. And then they would resell these for people. Now you're just say no on the floor,
Yeah.
on this back here. Let me just get around you here.
Sure.
Now this could be used for drugs. Is that a drug type
Yeah.
thing? Just say no to drugs.
Yeah, there's a little copy on the bottom here. It just says Giraffics is a graphic design studio interested in encouraging those pressured to use drugs, not to for their own sake.
Okay, yeah. And we were talking before we started here. You see, there's a fish hook, and these are fish, and you say no, and you don't want to get caught by it. You don't want to get hooked, in other words, on drugs. Very, very, very clever.
That poor fellow.
That guy got hooked, all right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that, as I was talking, if you put the big one in the middle or this one down here, it's a different idea. And so how many times do you draw this before you say, well, that's not really what I want?
You can do it many
times?
Probably, maybe this one, I think, probably about 30 or 40 times.
Is that right?
Sketch. And then actually getting a hard line developed thing, I do it many fewer times, like maybe just twice with this. So.
Okay. We'll take a short break. We're talking with Peter Martin, and we're at their home on Route 22 in West Shazy, New York, and we're talking about a young man who's into graphic arts, and we're going to be talking a little bit more, and we'll hope you're interested. It won't be a long program. It'll probably be a half an hour or so, and thank you for tuning in to Hometown Cable. Stay tuned. We're looking at some T-shirts here that Peter has made the design. If you remember when we did Finney's Sporting Goods, and he does a lot of silkscreen printing onto T-shirts and hats and different things, well, someone has to design what he puts on. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, go on from there, Peter.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of T-shirts, actually. That's a lot of the business I do. And like this one is just one I did for myself that I'm selling on my own.
You sell the T-shirts?
Yeah. And then, but...
Well, look, just get an idea here now. For instance, now this is a baseball type stitching. World War I, World War II, and there's the world. And let's not make this one a World Series. There's a lot of thought goes into that, and then there's a lot of work to design that to get the pattern. Okay.
Yes.
Then some of the others you have here?
Yeah, and then this one is actually the first time Washington College rowing team did this ergometer rowing, making a world record. I think it was only 120 hours. They kept the one going constantly. I did a T-shirt for them here.
So that's inside?
Yeah.
Does that mean, and then they just keep, and someone else takes his place and just keeps rowing?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a money-raising thing, probably, for the college?
Yeah.
They haven't mentioned what we're talking about.
No. You're talking about rowing, he said, right?
Right, but we haven't mentioned...
Okay, explain what we're talking about when you're talking about this organic?
Ergometer?
Ergometer, okay.
Well, with the sport of rowing, a machine that's used a lot for training, especially in the wintertime when you can't be out in the water, is called an ergometer, and it's often in health clubs and stuff. Places you see ergometers, they're rowing machines basically, and it's basically where one person sits and moves just like they do in a boat, but they have a wind-resistant wheel, and that's where they get the resistance from. And the Washington College rowing team, Washington College wants to do a world record as to keeping one of these moving constantly, continuously, for an extended period of time. They set one world record in 1991, and this is what this T-shirt's for.
Okay.
But this week, actually, starting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, they're starting to do another one for 168 hours. That's 1 week solid. This T-shirt I designed, and this was given to all the rowers who participated, and it was given out as sort of just a thank you to people that helped out.
Okay, now, helped out, in what way they helped out? Do they donate money for each hour? Is that something like the walking or the running?
Yeah, it's very much where they get a sponsorship from people.
Okay.
Over Christmas vacation, the rowers are sent home with a sponsor sheet and told to get so many sponsors.
And who recognizes the world record? Who says that it is a world record? Is there a group?
No,
Is it Guinness?
No, it's not Guinness. It's the company that makes these specific ergometers,
Okay.
Concept 2. They're always taking. People
Right.
can report.
And nobody has beaten the 91 up until 93?
I think someone has. I think a rowing club in England did. I'm not certain about that.
Okay.
And so, but right now, I'll show you a little later on that a new T-shirt I'm designing for their latest effort.
Okay. So how many hours would it have taken you to design something like this, give or take?
Well, the actual design, getting the idea and everything, I never really keep track of that because, as I showed you with the journal, I'm always here and there.
So you can be sitting down, apparently, I look at you and say, he's not doing anything, but you are. Up here, you're thinking, you're trying to work out something in your mind.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, not always so consciously, but but when I actually get down to do the color separations and everything for the silk screening process.
Okay, we'll see that a little bit later, so you'll know what color separations is in silk screening. Okay.
The average shirt takes about 10 hours to do.
To do.
10 hours of work.
To develop and get it ready to start printing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's another. I did this for an invitational regatta at Washington College. And
again, okay, some more of your work there. All right.
Yeah.
And now that one doesn't look quite as. That's more complicated on the back. Oh yes, yes.
It's this T-shirt was sold as a fundraiser. Last year.
Okay, give us an idea then. All right, now can you show us? There's another. You're into Washington College a lot here. Of course, you were there, right?
Yeah, I was there.
The crew races, and here is a rowing boat, right? That's I could say boat.
Yeah,
is
we're
right?
often shell.
Shell. Okay, a rowing shell, and one person sits here and use this one, and so you'd have 8 people for those 8 oars.
Then there's usually a coxswain too.
That kind of keeps it with a gait.
Who steers the boat and is sort of the strategist in the race, and also just general management of the whole boat. Keeping it all together.
Let's see here. We have another.
And I did this for Washington College Development Office for their fall phonathon.
Wow. Yep.
And they came to me and asked me if I would do this because they saw actually this T-shirt on campus.
Okay. Now all of these you've been paid for, right?
Yes.
Okay, you've been paid for these. All right. Now you have on your board now, for instance, what you would do, right? How you would start something like this out.
Yeah.
Can you show us that here as we go along?
Well, for this T-shirt, the latest world record for the ergometer rowing at Washington College, I've developed the design in this little journal here. Basically, this would be pretty much where I've gotten. And then what I do to actually start finalizing the design and making it ready for printing, I do what I call a footprint drawing, and it just shows me where it's a very light sketch, it's not very detailed, and it just gives me enough information as to where each individual element of the design is located. And then I make register marks on this footprint so that when I actually do separate the colors, they can be put back together.
In other words, you're going to be printing on top one on top of the other, and then each sheet that you would use would have those same marks in the same place, and you'd line them up so you know the printing is exactly where you want to be in relationship to the other. Okay. Now this would be...
Yeah, of course, this is already done. But what I did was I took a blank sheet of acetate. It's just a thin, transparent plastic. And I just set it down. And then what I do is just tape it with just a little bit of tape.
All right, now to get these numbers and this lettering on here, this is done with a transfer type?
Yeah, it's done with I used a series of methods to get my different shapes and what I want on it. As far as the lettering goes, when I want nice clean, professional-looking letters, what I do is I use the transfer lettering, and I take the sheet of acetate.
Just show people they don't have any idea what you're talking about here. This is a sheet of transfer lettering, and you can see that all the blank spots you've taken off already.
Yeah.
Okay, and then go ahead now. This what you're going to do?
Then I just take the clear acetate that I wanted on, and then I just line up where I want it, and that's the purpose of the footprint drawing, is
Right.
to tell me exactly where I want the letters. And then it's just a matter of burnishing it on with either a pencil or any sort of hard tool that you can press it on with. And then you take it off, and it's been transferred.
It transfers from there onto the acetate.
Yeah.
Or on any kind of, you can put it on paper
Yeah,
as
you
well
can
as
put it on
acetate.
paper.
But the acetate you can see through at your other design.
Yeah, the reason you use acetate or any clear paper for silk screening is that when they actually project the image onto the silk screens to make the screens, you need the light to go through the parts that you don't want printed.
All right. You make a separate sheet acetate for each color that you want to use, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that when you put the what I want to say, the ink through the silk screening will be a different color for each screen.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right. So then you've come up here now. Would that be the end of it now, or do you have another acetate go on top of that? You'd have another that would be a different color again that would have more onto it.
In this design, this is the red ink would
Okay.
be put through this shape.
All right. Anything that's on this particular acetate would be red on the final. Okay.
Right. And then, and this is a two-color design, and the other color is like a yellow that's being used. And the yellow, when it's actually printed, the yellow is printed first.
Right.
And it's printed down first, like that, onto the T-shirt. And what I've done is just blocked out where the yellow goes.
Right.
And then the red is put down on top
of
the
it, and the red will show onto the yellow. Very good. And then down here where it's white behind it, there's no yellow behind the rest of the part.
Right.
All right.
The
I
white
hope you're following what we're saying here. All right. This is hours of work. Of course, we're trying to digest into a small amount, yet give you an idea what he has to do. All right. So then you would take these various acetates and go to another contractor who would then make you color separations.
Right. Well, the printer, it's the man who does the T-shirt printing.
Okay.
Has his camera or light table that exposes the screens to the process of it is that you take a silk screen and you put down like a blue film that's sensitive to light, and then you put these on top of that blue film, and you shoot light for it for a minute or 2 minutes or whatever it requires, and the black hides the light from the film, and the film will stay water soluble when it's not exposed to light, but when it's exposed to light, it hardens to the silk screen. So all the part around it that's been exposed to the silk screen stays, but everything that you want the film to go away so that the ink can go through the screen to print that image, the black has been made there to keep the light away from that film. So it's just each screen will have its own image of the color.
Right. All right, and then you would find, like we had here. Here you had 3 different screens. You had 4. You had a black, and you had a blue, and you had a green, and you had an orange on that particular one. And they were all drawn separately on his acetates here.
Here's a good example.
Okay.
That this is a final design here. There are actually 5 colors: the black, the green, the red, the blue, and the yellow. And for each one, like the green, the only part that's green here I've drawn there, so that this is projected onto the screen so that the ink will just go through that part, the green ink. And then another screen will be for like the red that's been made.
Right. And where there is no here, that means that nothing will go there. It's leaving space for the blue later.
Yeah, for the blue, and the blue.
Because if you put the blue over the red, you might get a different color.
Yeah.
There's the blue that will go right over these, and where you don't see the blue. All right.
Yeah. So I mean, if you put those things
Together, you'll see there's your
They fit right in, so it makes it just like there. And then the lettering goes down, of course. And then,
And then
the final layer, the yellow, you can
the
see.
star, yep. And remember, again, these register marks, make sure that the little blue will fall exactly where you want it within the red when you make up your patterns, right? And those are called, we have a couple different names for them.
Well, I call them reference marks.
Reference mark, and in printing they used to call it, when I was working, they used to call them register marks. Well, with printing I didn't get into silkscreen as much. And that's what you'd come up with at the end.
Yeah.
5 different processes when you're putting the ink down. If you remember, if you saw our show at Finney's, where they kept turning the unit around with the silkscreen, where they put more ink, the same, is it different ink in each of the fonts not fonts, the containers that.
So it's a process where you take the design and take the colors apart, and then you bring them to the printer and put the colors back together.
Okay, now getting back to you're going to go back down to Washington, you think, in the near future, and you're going to be looking for a full-time job.
Yes.
Finally, you're going to have to work like Calvin and I, full-time. All right? Okay. Now, when you go, you told us before, you bring a portfolio.
Yes.
Can you show us what you would call your portfolio?
Yeah, this is the portfolio.
It even says portfolio, see? And Peter S. Martin. What's the S for?
Stockwell?
Stockwell. All right. That was your mom's maiden name?
No, it's ancestor's name.
Okay, great. Okay.
And then it's just what I've done here is I've just written sort of a little.
Did you do the book yourself?
Yes.
You made the portfolio. Can you make those for other people then also?
Yeah, if they wanted.
Okay. And you've written yourself a little story?
Yeah, just some of my thinking about design.
Uh-huh.
You know, a lot of people probably won't have the time to read it, but then there'll be some that will.
Okay, yeah. Now, you only have one of these, and you bring it and you leave it?
No, I have 2 of these.
You have 2, all right.
2 identical ones.
All right. So you bring it and you leave it with a potential employer or customer, so he can see your work?
Yes.
Okay. And these are your various ideas here. Here's one of your posters.
Yeah. And then this is like a stationary envelope, letter, and business card for. And then this is a poster.
Have you heard this song? Some people have to listen to this all the time. Please be careful with your ears. Okay. Yeah. Now you have a T-shirt like that, didn't you? I saw that. Yeah. But this could also be used as a poster, not necessarily just a T-shirt, right?
Yes.
Okay. No, there you.
Yeah, this is just a experimental project of my own that I did. I had a collection of photographs from China, and so I made a photographic journal of it, and this would just be the cover.
Okay.
Of that. And that's a poster just about illiteracy and literacy volunteers. And this is just another sort of journal cover.
Dog eat dog with the hot dog. A lot of hot dogs at college, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, there's some more of the ideas. And from this, a person can get the kind of thinking that you have, whether it would fit in with what they want. They have some idea what they're looking for, right? At the various jobs, all right? So you would design a stationery too like this?
Yeah. Yeah,
this
is a wedding invitation
that
I did for my sister, actually, and brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And this portfolio, it's designed to be a flexible system that, if I do freelance work and I go to a corporation that's looking for poster design, and all I want to show them are poster designs because they wouldn't really be interested in seeing T-shirts.
Okay, and so
then I can just
you pull that, I can put another one in.
I just slide the page out. I can replace it with another page.
Okay, yeah. So. You got a big shelves for that type of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It gives them the general idea, and then you saw this pattern already when we showed you the "Don't blow it" World Series, "Don't strike out." One more strike and you're out. World War I, World War II. Now you didn't have this. That was one idea you had. You didn't follow through with it.
See, these are all just developmental sketches to show a little bit how I work, how I think, and everything. And this is just a poster for I do like a in-school program with
Mhm.
art classes.
Now, I guess I'd have to ask you: is there a big demand for graphic art people?
Yeah, there are a lot of designers, so it's still a very competitive and very tight
Mm-hmm.
market when you're looking for a job. But there is a huge design because everything you see basically
Mm-hmm.
has been printed. Everything from magazines to
Okay. You want to go back to the Albany area? Is that or Delaware or Maryland?
Washington,
Washington D.C. area,
Mhm.
and you're going to advance on what type of a company or people to try to get work?
Well, what I'd like to get is a paying internship to start out. Just being in a context where graphic design and production of it go on all the time, so I can learn a tremendous amount that I don't know right now.
Okay.
And so I'll be going to advertising agencies and also graphic design firms and possibly some corporations that have their own in-house programs
Mm-hmm.
for the graphic design.
Okay, we'll be right back. You're watching Hometown Cable. What's going on here? Peter Martin is our guest this morning, and I'm Bob Venn. Calvin Castine on the camera. Please stay tuned. We'll be back. A little while earlier, Peter mentioned that his former coach, I guess, the band he worked with, Davenport,
Mike Davenport.
Mike Davenport, and they got a book that he did the text, and David did the artwork. And I said, David, I took your father. Peter, thanks, Calvin. Peter did the drawings for the book, and here we have it. And look at the number of pages.
I did the cover design. Unfortunately, the cover isn't here
Uh-huh.
right now. But there are 141 illustrations that I did, and the topic of the book was of rigging of rowing, and in the rowing shells that you row in, the riggers that hold the oars, they're a very precise adjustment that has to become of the rigger. And so this book was all about adjusting those riggers. And it's a very technical topic, and there's been much literature on it before, but it's been very serious and very dry.
You could have that thick of a book to talk about I say just, the way you fasten it to the skull. That's a skull.
Yeah, the
Skull itself,
or
yeah.
shell.
All right, that would be what would hold, as you and I know, if you're doing oars, the oar lock in between. It's that area right there, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, and tell us more about your...
So, well, the final book is actually about 300 pages long, and
Okay,
so these,
show us some of the...
but it has a very humorous approach to it. Here, it starts from the very basic, assuming that the person knows nothing,
Mm-hmm.
down to the difference between a bolt and a nut. And so they're just like here, it's lightning bolt and a nut.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets how to use an adjustable wrench,
Right.
and then it gets very specific.
Now, there's text in addition to this that he
Yeah,
has put
oh,
in.
yeah.
Is that text around the picture?
Well, these pictures have no reference to how it's like on the
Okay,
page. These
all right.
were all cut out and then positioned.
Where he wanted
In
it.
the
All right.
text, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So,
Now, there is a skull,
Mhm.
and what we're talking about is an area right here, right, where the oar comes onto the skull itself, that little area right there.
yeah,
We'll probably see one here as we go through.
yeah, and that's like cross section.
Uh-huh. That's an oar.
And this just goes to identify all the different parts of the boats. And what the actual rigger itself looks like. Is something like that.
Now, did you have the text when you did the drawings?
Yes, I had a manuscript.
You had to
with
read
me.
that and make sure that you
Yeah.
knew it. You could draw something like he was talking about.
Yeah, I had to read the book and go through drawing by drawing, making sure that my drawing matched what he was referring to in the
Okay.
drawings.
Now, where it appears that your drawing appears on the page with the text is not your responsibility. It's somebody else's
Well,
responsibility.
both Mike and I did that together.
Okay,
we
you
sort
did.
of worked
Okay.
together on placing the drawings.
Mm-hmm.
Where
It's a long project.
Yeah, it took, Mike, it took him like 3 years and many drafts of the book to be writing the book, and then I worked on it. This took me the total project for me was about 175 hours
Wow.
to do.
That's 40 hours a week. That's 4 weeks. That's nearly that's a month. But now what you're talking about is that I would assume that the potential sale of this book is restricted to the number of people who are into rowing.
Yeah, but it's quite a big market.
There
I
is a
think,
big market.
Um,
All the other countries too.
yeah, this is made specifically for 5 different makes of boats, 5 different manufacturers, and right now Mike is working with some of those manufacturers to actually be selling this book as part of a package with their boats.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right,
we
yeah,
would be
yeah.
selling thousands of these books
Right.
to
Okay.
that are wholesale.
Okay. Now there is a magazine, very specialized, or subscription only, American Rowing,
Yes.
and you mentioned that part of this story will be in this. Tell us about that.
Yeah, in the March issue of the American Rowing Magazine, there'll be one chapter with the drawings printed in this magazine.
Make you feel good to see your drawings in all these magazines, huh?
Yeah, well, it'll be going out to approximately 40,000 people
That's
across
great.
the country.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's,
And then there's 3 or 4 who read each magazine at least, right?
yeah.
So you're talking a couple 100,000 people before you're
Yeah.
finished.
And what's nice about this is that it will be just one chapter, which will show people exactly what the book's about, and it's going to be appearing before the summer, the rowing
Mhm.
season, and a lot of people will probably be interested in getting that book.
Whet their appetite.
Whet their appetite, yes. So hopefully by summertime we'll have been.
Okay. Now, do you do this on a salary basis? You do it on a percentage basis? How do you work? How do you work with an author like
There
this?
are many different ways of billing. As far as this goes, we agreed that I would be getting 10% of the revenue, and the book by mail order sells for $24.95. So I basically get $2.50 for every book that's sold there. And but when we will be selling a lot of the books wholesale to like bookstores,
Mm-hmm.
like in Boston, there's one bookstore that deals with nothing but rowing,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll sell a lot of books to them. That will be going for about almost $10. So I'll get about $1 a book there, and then if we do work out anything with the manufacturers of the books, they'll be selling for about $6. So I'll get about 60 cents per book. So, projecting it down, I guess I have over the next 3 years, I'll probably be getting about $6,000 for this book.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's very good. Yeah, it gives you potential there. Something like insurance, where you get what do you call those, residuals? Every year you get it when they renew and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else, Peter, you want to tell us about what you've been doing?
Well, maybe one last thing.
Yes?
I guess, is this
Oh, yes.
poster I did, and this is a
Yeah,
poster.
put this where.
60,000 were printed and sent all around the country for the organization who had this done was the American Association for World Health in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically the United States Council to the World Health Organization of the United Nations.
All right, now,
Yeah.
how did Peter Martin
Yeah.
get in touch with the World Health Organization to say you'd like to make a poster to them? And did you have to compete with others, or how did you go about something like that?
Well, I'm not sure if I competed with others. I don't know if they interviewed anyone else, but it's quite by chance. I happened to be mentioned to someone that I did graphic design, and this person sold boats, and they said, "Oh, I just talked to a person yesterday about boats, but she said she was an ad rep and was actually starting to work on this one project." And he gave me her number, and I called her and said I was interested in this project, and she said, "Oh, fine, thank you." She took my name and number, and then that went away. 2 weeks later, I had sort of passed that off as nothing worked out, but then I got a call from the American Association of World Health in Washington, D.C. that said, "Please bring in your portfolio. We want to see your work." So I brought my portfolio and I showed them, and they decided there that they wanted to have me design this poster. So they gave me the basic whole project description, and I went through a number of different alternatives of the design where they agreed that they wanted to buy this design from me.
Mm-hmm. This gives you an example, and I make a plug here for Hometown Cable maybe, that people aren't going to come looking for Peter to design something for him because they don't know about Peter. You've got to make yourself known. You've got to ask questions. And the advertisers on hometown cable, unless they know what you're doing, people aren't going to be getting your product. And you people out there who are advertising know. I talked to someone yesterday who told me that they were amazed at how much new business they had got because of something that appeared on hometown cable. And it made me feel good, and it makes Calvin feel good, and they put some money in that person's pocket, and the same with yourself. And you just off the cuff mentioned this, correct?
Yeah.
When you go to a garage sale, I go to garage sales, I'm a magazine collector, and if I don't see magazines, I don't say, well, you don't have any magazines. You say, do you have any magazines that you might want to sell? They say, well, they're heavy. I didn't bring them in. I got some real old ones. They're not much good. And I say, that's the ones I want. Yes. You have to advertise. And that's how it's word of mouth, right?
Oh, a lot of it is, yeah.
And now your name is not on here anywhere. They don't show anything as far as...
No, because, see, they own the copyright. Because
okay.
I sold them the copyright.
All right. And anything else you copyright... Do you actually register the copyright, or you just put copyright on it?
Well, by law of Congress, it's automatically.
I know it is. As soon as you put it on, right?
So I haven't gotten to register anything as of yet.
Okay.
I intend to.
It makes it just as enforceable. Now, a copyright means, do you have one here that we could just show? You had one of your shirts that showed your name on it, and that the copyright. That was one of those I saw.
Yeah.
Okay. Right here, if you just show, it shows. The copyright can be either say COPR period, it can say COPRIGHT, or it can have a C in a circle. It means it's copyrighted. There must be a year, and then the person who owns the copyright. And by putting that there, if anybody were to copy this, they're subject to lawful penalties if he wants to follow through on it, correct?
Yeah.
You don't have to register. You can register, but by putting that there, it's giving you warning, don't touch my design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's an interesting thing about copyright because you can use the same idea, but just don't do it in the same way.
Okay, you could put this in the middle instead, maybe, and maybe call this a war, and it would be different, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, Peter, we enjoyed talking with you very much. I've learned a little bit about graphic design. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
No, I do basically anything from T-shirts to stationery to invitations to posters to books, illustrating books.
Does a graphic designer advertise where you get things from individuals? Because it makes it a little expensive for an individual to have something designed for himself.
Yeah, it's often a lot of people will do that. It tends to be people who have more than enough money will go to a graphic designer. They'll have everything from birth announcements done and printed up to wedding invitations to anything, but most of it occurs with advertisement of businesses, organizations, through posters or ads that show up in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm. The young are taking over the world here. Not only is young Peter getting out in the world now, but we have a new president this morning, and he's thinking the same way as our new young president of 46 years old. Our president, not that Peter is, but he's half his age.
Yeah.
Just about?
25.
25 years old. So, all right. Well, Peter, thank you very, very much for talking with us. And we happened to I was going to watch what your father typed yesterday, and by coming in, he said, you want to meet my son? And that was it. And here we are today. Calvin said, what about and this was less than 24 hours ago.
Yes.
Anything else before we close?
No, I think that covers just about
everything.
everything.
Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you.